Hi, my name's Karen Craig. Thank you so much for sharing this time with me. I really appreciate you letting me tell you my conversion story. It's been an exciting journey for me. I'm still being awed every day of what I'm learning about this wonderful Catholic faith. You see, I've been a Baptist my entire life. I'm 65 years old. I can't remember a time that I wasn't at church. Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, I was always there. I am surrounded by Baptist ministers. My great grandfather was an itinerant preacher. We have Baptist preachers, we have Baptist youth ministers, choir directors. My daddy was a layman, but he was a Sunday school superintendent and a deacon in our church. And I appreciate the Baptist faith. It has been a wonderful place to learn scripture, to learn how to tell people about Jesus, and just to learn how to become more godly and closer to Jesus. My journey began 17 years ago. I met the sweetest young couple, and guess what? They were Catholic. My first thoughts were, oh, I love them so much. I have just got to teach them about Jesus so they can get saved. And I'm sure they smiled at me knowingly whenever I would say, oh, would you tell me the time? When did you ask Jesus in your heart? And I'm sure they were just thinking, that Karen. But I loved them so much, and I enjoyed being around them. And they traveled sometimes, and they would ask me to watch their two boys. And my husband traveled a lot at the same time, and I would go and spend the weekend with the boys, and they wanted me to take them to church, and it was St. Jerome's. And I remember the first time I walked into that church, it just took my breath away when I saw that statue of Jesus. And I couldn't help it, but I was so close to tears the entire time. I didn't know why, but I do now. I know it was because the host was there. So it piqued my interest a little, and I did ask them a few questions. You see, I never knew anybody Catholic. There was one little girl that lived behind me when I was growing up, and I loved it when she asked me to go to church because I got to wear a lace scarf on my head. And I loved that. It was so interactive. You got to stand up, sit down, stand up, kneel down. It was just a really fun church for me to go to. Well, there was a time in my life that I couldn't sleep at night. And like I said, my husband traveled a lot. And so I would wake up at the wee hours of the morning. And there's not a great selection on TV at that time. And so I would watch EWTN. It was the only thing that really was on at that time. And always it seemed the program that I was watching would be The Martyrs. And it was very moving, and, it just really tugged at your heart. And I remember thinking, even then, these precious dear souls, they would not give their life for a lie, for something that wasn't true, and something that wasn't truth to them. So I had those thoughts in my head. And being a Baptist, I can't remember a time, even when I was a little girl, I always thought about God. I talked to him all the time. I didn't want to ever disappoint him. Of course we do. I just wanted to please him so much, and I wanted to be all that he had called me to be. And so God was certainly in on my conversations when I started asking, gosh, these precious people, they love you so much, or loved you so much, and they gave their life for you. That's an amazing faith to me. And then fast forward a few years, my grandson was in kindergarten, and I would go and pick him up, And one day I was a little bit perturbed. I got in the car, and one of my adult children had apparently changed my radio station from my Christian music to another station. And so I'm driving down the road, and I'm just hitting on the seek button. And as soon as I would hear a Christian song or anything that I knew was Christian, I was going to stop it. Well, I did. I heard the most beautiful prayer, and I just quickly stopped. And I started listening to this prayer. It was amazing. It was moving. I've never heard anything like this in my life. And then people started calling in to this host, this radio host, and asking him to pray for them. And he didn't say, okay, we'll put you on the prayer list, we'll pray for you. He prayed right then. He stopped and prayed right then for them. And then people called in, and they would say, do you remember I called you 6 months ago and my sister had cancer? Today she's cancer-free. And it wasn't just once a story like that. There were many, many. And I just couldn't get enough. Well, I turned the radio off when my grandson got in the car so we could talk about his day, but I couldn't wait till the next day to get back in the car and go pick him up so I could listen to that station again. And I listened to it for several days before I realized it was a Catholic radio station. It just blew me away. There's no way this can be a Catholic radio station, but it was. And I started listening to it. I put it on my computer at work. I listened to it all day at the office. I would listen to it coming home. I would listen to my radio at night on my phone. It was just incredible what I was hearing. And the truth was just right there in front of me. And so one day I was listening, and they were talking, it was something in reference to politics, and I'm not an expert on anything, but I did study political science at Baylor, and I felt like I maybe could contribute to this conversation. And so I called, and it was someone who was sitting in for the host who normally is on at that time. And so I got online, which I was very surprised, and I told him my 2 cents worth, and then he started asking me questions, and I said, well, I'm a Baptist, and so we talked about that for a minute, and then he said, well, what's stopping you from becoming a Catholic? And I was so stunned. I was speechless. I didn't know what to answer to him. And finally I said nothing. And so we ended the conversation. He was a very nice young gentleman. And so I started hearing about RCIA classes. And I thought I need to find out about those classes. And then one day I was sitting in my car in the Walmart parking lot, and I had so many questions, and I didn't know any Catholics. I didn't know who to ask. I didn't know who would tell me the answers to my questions. And I remembered St. Jerome's, and I knew there were Catholics there. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to call St. Jerome's. And the first person that answers, they were just going to have to talk to me. They just have to. And so I called, and I got the nicest man on the phone. And I said, I have so many questions. I'm Baptist, and I need to know some answers to my questions. I said, would you help me? And that sweet man, it must have been an hour, sat there patiently listening to me and answering my questions. It was one of those God moments. And he was so sweet and kind. I really even wanted to go further. And so I found out about the RCIA classes, and I called, and they had already started. But Deacon Ray Carter was so kind, and he said that he would catch me up one-on-one if I wanted to come. And I did. And the first class that I went to, his wife sat next to me, Charlotte. And somewhere during the program, they mentioned that you had to have a sponsor. And I kind of giggled, and I looked at her and I said, Charlotte, I don't know any Catholics. I don't know who I could ask to be my sponsor. And it's so kind. She is so kind. And she said, well, I'll be your sponsor. I couldn't believe it. I was stunned. I thought, she doesn't even know me. And I knew, because I knew it was a commitment. And so she became my sponsor, and bless her heart, if there ever was a saint, it is Charlotte. It didn't matter what time of the day or the night I text or called with questions. She was right there for me. And she has helped me along this journey, and I am so grateful for her. And so I started the classes, and around Christmas, kind of midway through, my husband was out of town and had been for about 6 months. And I don't know if I mentioned, but my husband had also been an associate pastor. And we had always done everything together. We made decisions together. We were always on the same journey. And I really wanted him to be on this journey with me, but I didn't know what he would say, because it would be such a huge thing for us for him to do this with me. But I went to see him, and I explained to him what I had been doing, what I had been feeling, and I said, I really would like for you to join me in these classes, just because he's so intellectual, and I said we could just find out together. And to my surprise, he agreed. And so I didn't complete those RCI classes, and we started when the new ones started up. And he just went right through that faith journey with me, and we did become Catholics, and it's just been a wonderful, wonderful journey. And my faith, I was full, but I wasn't completed. I had a rich spiritual life, but becoming Catholic completed it for me. And one of the greatest things, and I know I'm going to get emotional about this, I'm sorry, but I did not know that I had a Heavenly Mother. I do now, but I've spent my entire life not knowing that. And I've asked Mary just to forgive me. I never talked to her, but I talk to her every day now, and she's so precious to me. And I've really missed out a lot by not knowing her. And so I want to tell everybody about this faith, how wonderful it is, how beautiful it is. And I want them to know about Mary and how she loves them and she prays for them. It is a wonderful thing to know. And I'm so glad I do now. And I just want to thank you again. I'm sure there have been many of you that have prayed for me, my friends in RCIA and others who have watched me walk this journey. And I just want to say thank you so much. And don't hesitate to tell others about this beautiful faith that we have. It's life-changing, and they need to know. Thank you so much.